Prayers. Namo Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaini Dadati Kadam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshitani Jai Shri Krishna
Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya, Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Gaur Bhaktavranda,
Hare Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
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 Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare Ram
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Uh, Welcome, Saurabh, Shalin. So we we were on chapter two, and of the second chapter, I think just a very quick recap of what we already covered before we move on to the next part. So the chapter two actually is broken into five sections. It has around 72 verses. Now, in the first 10 verses, Arjun actually accepts Krishna as teacher. Then, in the second section, we have the knowledge of body and soul, which is the Sankhya Yoga. Third section is Sakaam Karma Yoga, where it is basically work with enjoyment and for enjoyment. And the fourth section would be about Niskama Karma Yoga, where Krishna explains work with detachment, and that also will include little bit about Bhakti Yoga. And the last section is about qualities of a wise person or a Sthita-pragya Manushya. So this verse 1 to 10, I'll just quickly go through what was important. So we discussed the definition of Bhagwan, because Krishna is called Bhagwan in Bhagavad Gita and many places. Bhagwan means the one who has all the six opulences in the greatest quantity. So Bhaga means Aishwarya. So Aishwaryasya Samagrasya. So we saw wealth, wisdom, strength, fame, beauty, renunciation. I think Krishna can claim all these six opulences to the fullest. Then we also saw the absolute truth and the realization of absolute truth in three phases. One is Brahman, then Paramatma, and then Bhagwan. And as per Vaishnava principle, Bhagwan, realization of Bhagwan as a person in relationship with God is the highest form of realization. Then we also saw from Brahma Samhita that what are with Krishna is the Ishvara Parama Krishna, which is the primeval Lord and the uh, Lord of all the lords. He is cause of all causes. And then uh, there is list of incarnations which was there again in Bhagavatam, and it's very clearly mentioned that Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. While there are ete chamsa kala pumsa, like there are this incarnation of God, but Krishna is is the Bhagavan himself Swayam. So that is why we accept Lord Krishna as the avatari, and everything else is avatar, incarnation. It's like photocopy की original copy कौन सी थी? Let's say if you see a lot of colored photocopies, what was the original? So that was it. Then I think then Arjun actually starts, he has more doubts, more questions, that how can I counteract Bhishma, Drona, who are worshipable. Then he says better to live begging rather than desiring this worldly gain by killing, especially superiors. And in the verse 7, I think he, and again very very beautiful verse, uh, where he says karpanya dosho pahata swabhava, due to this miserly weakness, right? Prachami tvam dharma sammodha cheta, that I am asking you to show me the path of dharma, because I am actually confused. And that is the condition where he basically says sishyaste ham shadimam tvam prapannam, that accept me as your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you, and please instruct me. So this is where, and the reason I keep mentioning this verse is, this is where the process of surrender actually starts. That one may be confused, one may not know, one's duties, reality of this world, which God, whether God exists, or like there could be a lot of confusions. But if one starts surrendering, from the heart to the Supreme Lord, and whichever Lord you may want to actually start with, there's no problem in that. Uh, but it has to be a sincere desire, right, and a sincere surrender of soul. So that's important, especially in the path of spirituality, that one is sincere from heart. I think, anyways, anything you do at a superficial level will not help at all, actually, on this path. So this verse 7 is again very important. We can try to remember. Or then we looked at Kripana versus Brahmana. Kripana is a miserly person who basically does not use or utilize the human birth in understanding the science of self-realization. Instead, like he keeps taking birth after birth. Then we move to the second section, which was the Sankhya Yoga or Gyana Yoga. This basically analyzes the matter and the spirit. And here again, I think we did like we began with a discussion around uh, that Krishna starts explaining the qualities of the soul. That I was always there, you were always there. Change of the body, we discussed the Ehinosmin, how the body changes from birth, to you boyhood and youth, and then old age and death. Then we compared bodies like a dress, and therefore we don't lament for the dress of a drowning man. Then there was a discussion on matra sparshas konteya, which is tolerate heat and cold, joy and sorrow, and this again will keep coming back in the first chapter also, like in the further verses also. We discuss the story of these two shall pass. Then bad news is the body is never alive. So that is another verse 16. Then this is the another verse about changing bodies, which is vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani. So like the way we change our garments, that is exactly the way soul actually changes the body. And yeah, maybe I think we change garment after maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. I think for soul that time is actually very very small in soul's perspective. So this is the other anomalies we discussed, and then I think we ended here about the two birds sitting together. And we basically looked at Mundak Upanishad and Shvetashvatar Upanishad, where this analogy is given about the soul and the super soul both residing in one body. And what are they doing? So one bird, which is the soul or jivatma, it is enjoying the fruits. Sometimes the fruits are bitter, sometimes the fruits are sweet. Sometimes the bird is morose, sometimes it is happy, sometimes it is singing, sometimes it is silent. While the other bird, which is the Paramatma form of or plenary expansion of Lord, sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart, uh, it is simply watching his friend and waiting for the friend to turn to him uh, for knowledge and love. So that is where I think, sorry, we ended here. Now today we'll take it further from those verses. This is again a quick glimpse of what we looked at. So the verse 23 is about uh, same theme, which is the soul is eternal. So this I think we would have heard earlier also. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chenam kledayantyaapo, na toshiyati maruta. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon. And he was like, even nuclear weapon of course cannot kill. nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Now, so this is, I think, uh, this the theme of soul is eternal is, very very well explained in second chapter. So there's lots and lots of verses, I think, which anyways were needed for us also and for Arjun also to convince that body is perishable, but the soul is eternal. And Krishna explained it in like from various angles. So here, for example, soul cannot be cut by weapons. So the starting point was weapons, that even if you kill, somebody's body by your weapons, the soul will not be cut, by the weapon. Then the soul, cannot be burned by fire. So nenam dahati pavaka. Then the na chainam kledi antyapo. It cannot be even moistened, by the water or drowned by the water. Then soul is not withered by the wind. Na soshati maruta. And soul cannot be dry. Okay. Then verse 24 is again about the same, concept, which is achedyoyam adhayoham akledyo sosya evacha. So here again, like achedyoyam adhyayoham, which is unbreakable and cannot be burned. Then akledyo sosya evacha is again insoluble and cannot be dried. Then nitya sarva gata sthano, it's everlasting, exists everywhere and unchangeable. Sarvagata is actually important here. Sarvagata means it's all pervading. It's not like only in human body. It's not only on land. It's actually in the water, aquatic bodies also. It's also in even the germs or microbes in the fire. It's actually even present there. And therefore, I think even, let's say, in sun planet there would be souls. We may not be able to see those. And so in all the dimensions, right, soul is actually is present and can be present. And the soul is unchangeable. The bodies can change, but the soul does not change. That is where, like when there is like when we think about whether the soul will change when it changes the body, or whether, soul will carry this. Soul is always, eternally the same. Then further, I think in the verse 25, it says, Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvenam nanu sochind arhasi. So it is said that the soul is invisible and inconceivable and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So this invisible word also, it's interesting, right? Because there is a lot of scientific studies which still going on to figure out or to see the soul through various mechanisms. When they try to see it, like of course no, like microscopes anyway don't work. Even the most powerful microscopes are not working. They try to see the weight of the body. They try to see if there is anything going around, outside the body from any part of the body. So, so still I think we could not figure out, couldn't see the soul. And because it's also given, right, that the soul is, invisible here, for the material eyes. And uh, it's inconceivable also, right, by especially from the material knowledge which is available. Like inconceivable, as we saw in various ways how it is inconceivable. And the soul is basically the source of consciousness, right? And so uh, so why the material body or the matter is dead, the consciousness actually comes from the soul. So again, so the point here again is being made is that eternally it is unchangeable. It is and it is actually, it is, but still it is atomic when it compares to the super soul or infinite, the size of the super size, in the sense, infinite super soul would be atomic, or very small in terms of quantity. In quality it's the same. And this, I think, concepts is repeated again and again and again in various scriptures. Then verse 26. Now he is saying that even if you think that the soul will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament. So now Krishna so far presented his own opinion and the scriptural dimension or conclusions on why one should not lament for the soul. Now in 26, Krishna will present other viewpoints according to the material vision that rejects the existence of soul. Knowing them, one can appreciate Krishna's viewpoint, which will further, he'll explain that. So there are like so many classes of philosophers, like very similar to Buddhists, who do not believe separate existence of the soul beyond the body. They feel that once you perfect this body, you basically achieve nirvana. And there are again, like, right, so they believe that at certain like life actually happens with a combination of chemicals, physical elements, and like it will again at certain stage life symptoms will disappear from this chemical. So we talked about it earlier also, but Krishna is trying to explain even from those viewpoints that even if you think the soul is not or the body is not eternal, you should not worry. And that's where the verse 27 is. It says jatasya hi dhruva mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. So one who has taken his birth is sure to die. So here is the translation for everyone. So one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. So he's saying even if you don't believe in soul, somebody who has taken birth is going to die. So don't worry about that. Anyways, that is going to happen. So again, the point here is one actually has to take birth according to one's activities of life. Right after finishing one term of activities, one dies and take another birth. In this way, like people keep going through one cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. Now, like while like we cannot support murder or slaughter just because people die every day, or not every day, like in this cycle. But at the same time, when violence becomes inevitable to protect the greater society, that is when violence is allowed or recommended. And but if one were to uh, one fails to discharge one's duty, that is where what that is where the degradation for that person or the soul actually happens. So if you think about birth is a combination of atma with previously non-existing senses and body, right? Death is separation of atma from the body and the senses, and the next birth actually happens depending on from one's good and bad deeds or karma. So that is why the jatasya dhruva mrityu, this will keep happening. Now in verse 28, Krishna is explaining avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata. So now Krishna is saying that all created living beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when unhighlighted. Right? So what is the need for therefore their lamentation? So here the same, he is saying that living beings actually remain unmanifest before the birth and again disappears after the birth, especially from a bodily point of view, right? So the manifestation period is only a madhya, like interim period.
Good.
Again, just you see, there are two classes of philosophers, right? One believing in the existence of soul, the other not believing in the existence of soul. Krishna is saying there is no cause for lamentation in either case, right? And and basically, like if you look at Sankhya philosophy, which is very clear, right? When the living entities are not visible, the subtle and gross body exists invisibly in a in a form of their karmas, right? And earth or elements, right, composing the body also always exist, like all the matter also exists. So they separately exist, and in the course of time, basically they combine, and they manifest as a body. If you look at from a drishti point of view, which is basically that where they feel that this visibility or this appearance of body is an illusion, right? That's what you hear from Mayavadis. And even if you believe that vad, then also doesn't matter, no, like it's an illusion then, like even if they don't believe in soul existence, the body is also illusion from that viewpoint. So here I just put this example of skyscraper. Like, so it basically manifested from the materials collected from the earth, and when it is destroyed or dismantled, once again all the uh, they again come back to the to separate forms, but again they become the material part of the earth, right? And at the atomic level they still remain, they exist, right? Whether they are skyscraper or they are in the mines, or they once again become the rubble. So in all stages they basically exist at an atomic level. So that is another example. Now, if we believe in Vedic conclusions like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, then it's very very clear that material bodies are perishable in due course of time. So antavanta ime deha, but the soul is eternal, which is nitya shakta sharirina. So it always exists. So and as per this teaching, we must remember always that the body is like a dress, and therefore why should we lament for the dress? Now, the other way of thinking about this material body is, this material body, let's say, have no actual factual existence, right, in relation to the eternal soul. It's almost like a dream state. So in a dream we may sometimes be flying, we may sometimes be king, we may be uh, swimming or drowning, but the moment we wake up uh, and we realize our real position, which is we are actually neither flying nor we are king, or nor whatever other state which we are actually experiencing in the dream. So the fact, so if you think from that dimension, this life is almost like a dream state, and in the reality state is actually our spiritual or soul level. And therefore I think the Vedic wisdom, in all Puran or literature, it encourages us to think in terms of like soul as the permanent entity, and the non-existence of the material body and the connections to the material body. Now the verse 29 is again, it talks about why the soul is so amazing. So Ashyaryavat pashyati kaschidena Masyaryavat vadati tatheva chandi. So some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So that is why the soul is amazing. Not everybody perceive it in the same way, and it has so many astonishing qualities compared to our material conceptions and perception. So since Gita is based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to find the similar passage or similar conclusions in the other Upanishads. So now, for example, this Katha Upanishad actually talks about the same quality of the soul. It says, Shravanyapi bahubir yona labhaya Shrinvantopi bahavo yamna vidya Ashyarya Vakta Kushalos Labdha Ashyarya Swa Janta Kushalani Shasta. The fact that atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in microbic organisms or germs, millions of billions of which occupy only 1 inch of space, is certainly very amazing. So this is the most astonishing part of the soul, and I think we were discussing earlier whether the soul exists in other animals or other organisms. But because of the material conception, we cannot imagine that how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So that's why people actually see soul as amazing and wonderful. So now some people who are inclined to hear more about the soul could be attending, reading about it, hearing about it. But sometimes because of ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the soul as the same. Because that is the confusion which a lot of people actually still carry, and that is maybe because of lack of reading or understanding. It's very difficult to find people who perfectly understand the position of the super soul and the atomic soul, which is the Paramatma and Jivatma, and their respective functions and the relationships and all the major and minor details of this. And it is actually even more difficult to find a person who derive benefit from the knowledge of the soul and is able to describe the
मैं नहीं
position
आ
of
रहा,
the soul in different aspects.
मंगा रहा हूँ
But if we
भाई।
actually reach,
मैं जा नहीं रहा,
if we
मैं
somehow
अमेज़न से मंगा रहा हूँ, ऑर्डर कर रहा
able to understand.
हूँ। शहनाई की फैक्ट्री वाला है।
So I think if we somehow we are trying to, if we understood this soul and super soul and the relationship and position, I think we must use it to make our lives successful. And the easiest is process is to understand Bhagavad Gita. That is the easiest way to reach this goal, because it is finally spoken by Krishna himself. Now, in the verse 30th, Krishna is now again talking about eternity. So he's saying Dehi Nityam Avadhyayam, Dehe Sarvasya Bharata. So he's saying this Dehi, which resides in this Deha, and Ram Sukdas ji actually says that Dehi is not a proper word. Actually, because Atma or the soul actually has no uh, connection with the body, but because Krishna was presenting it from somebody who is whose primary understanding is there, so therefore Krishna is talking about Dehi. Otherwise, otherwise Deha and Atma actually has no relationship. So now Krishna in the verse 30th is saying, hey Arjun, he who dwells in the body can never be slain, therefore you need not grieve for any living being. And that is where like again the concept of eternity keeps confusing everyone, that whether we are same as God, and we already discussed this in past, that how we are not similar to God. So how are we different from Krishna? So Krishna is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, right? He is the maintainer of all. Krishna is full of knowledge and bliss. We are in our original form full of knowledge and bliss, but we don't have knowledge of other souls. We have knowledge, right, of ourselves. And also we discussed that how Krishna is Bhagavan, which is full of the six opulences, while we can't enjoy that in the current body or in the current situation. And the analogies we looked at in the past is how are we how to think about the soul and the super soul. So the super soul is the ocean, and soul is a drop from that ocean, which is which will show all the qualities of the ocean, but in quantity it will be minute. Again, fire, the example of fire we just took, another, like spark, we are like a spark of fire. So this was the end of Sankhya Yoga. which was the entire discussion about body and spirit and relationship between soul and super soul, which we actually brought in from Upanishads and Puran. The third section is Sakaam Karma. So because there is a lot of yoga discussion about yoga, what is bhoga, what is various types of yogas are there. So we are now discussing each kind of yoga here. Now, if you remember in chapter 1, I think in verse 31, 35, Arjun actually was reasoning that there would be no enjoyment, even if he emerges victorious. So remember that because there is so much sin and lack of family members, etc. He was saying, right? So now Krishna actually will explain that if Arjuna performs his dharma, which is duty of fighting, there will be enjoyment both in victory and loss. He's like completely reversing the argument. Arjuna was saying that victory or loss, dono mein there is no enjoyment, right? Uh, and Krishna is now explaining how it is, enjoyment both in heaven and earth, and victory and loss. And he also actually discussed the problems of abandoning one's duty, and that is very very important for us, because we are all karma yogis in some sense. We are not renunciates. Even renunciates have their own duties. uh, and then that's where he starts discussing the process of karma yoga, which has multiple parts. One is Sakam Karma, which is also called Karma Kanda. And you just pay a lot of attention to this Karma Kanda and Sakam Karma, because most of the world is stuck here. Most, like when I say world, means Hindus, or especially our family members and all of us actually, practically, which is Sakam Karma and Karma Kanda, which is performing prescribed Vedic rituals for fruitive results. आई एम श्योर आपको याद आ जाएगा धीरे धीरे. 16 सोमवार से लेके तो ऑल द रिचुअल्स वी डू, एक्चुअली वैदिक रिचुअल्स, they are for a attainment of a particular result or outcome. Now, of course, that doing that is better than not doing anything. So especially, like again I'm just comparing other religions or people who are turned atheist and discarding completely all traditions and rituals, compared to those, because those will be part of yavanas, or people uh, like as per Vedic literature, they are not even showing gratitude for what they are getting. So by following karma kanda principles, you are actually showing gratitude. You are offering gratitude to to nature, to devatas, to your forefathers, etc. And that is how you are enjoying, in terms of sakama karma. But by not doing anything, one ungrateful soul, or they will have actually even degraded births. That is as per our Vedas. Now, so far Krishna explained the science of the soul, which is the gyan, atma gyan, like to induce Arjun to fight. Now, to further strengthen, now Krishna will speak about, it's like kind of giving you a reverse argument also. Now Krishna speaks about a lower principle, which basically talks about material benefits by performing one's action. Because Arjun actually had lot of confusion, lot of questions from various angles, right? So at one level he was worried about sin, at one level he was worried about lack of enjoyment. So Krishna is now kind of answering from all the angles. So now this, whatever we are going to discuss, is a lesser principle. So just remember, this is not the crux of Gita what we are going to discuss. Okay, so because I'm clarifying it beforehand, because don't think this is the rule. Okay, this is just to like explain Arjun from a different angle, because Arjun actually talked about forefathers and a lot of other sin and all. And uh, also I think the biggest point Krishna will make here is about swadharma, which is one's duty. And that is where I think we're starting also here. So the verse 31 actually talks about swadharma. Krishna says, swadharmamapi cha vekshana vikam padti tumharhasi धर्म्यादधि युद्धा चेयो अन्यातिक्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते. So, considering your specific duty as Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Now, this is for to understand this, we need to know the Varnashram, right? And which got tainted by casteism, which got so much bad name because of the wrong implementation in the later years. But if one were to understand, it is to understand your swadharma. It is not like to impose or exploit any particular community. So there were four orders of social administration earlier, right? Which is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So this is a social, order, which is to basically so that one knows what is his swadharma, right? And let's say Kshatriya. What does Kshatriya mean? Shat means to hurt, and Triya means Trayate means somebody who gives protection. So Kshatriyas are actually trained, right, to protect, and they will basically the training will be to kill, animals like through like that was the training which was given to them, so that at a given time, like it's like almost like our army, right? Like you are trained so that at the time of danger you can protect the country. So that is their duty or swadharma of any kshatriya is to protect the innocents. That was the whole swadharma for kshatriya. Similarly, for a brahmana the swadharma is different, uh, and kshatriyas could like generally they shouldn't have directly accept order of sannyas or renunciation, because like because that will create disturbance there. That is the reason, and I'll not go into more detail there. But because when you follow the principles of non-violence, right, as a kshatriya, then there is a lot of risk. You can do it for diplomatic reasons, for time being, but then there is a risk of one being like you basically lose your sovereignty. If you do too much non-violence, and you have to be ready for fights also. So there are two types of swadharma, and which is basically, think of it like specific duties. Swadharma means specific duty. So as long as one is not liberated, which is where we all are, one has to perform duties of his particular body in accordance with the social order, in accordance with the family order, and with religious principles to achieve liberation. Should I explain this? For example, if one is in the social order, let's say if we are uh, if we are in politics, I'm assuming that is, let's say, the politics is the kshatriya order. Effectively, they are the ruling community right now. Now their job is to protect the interest of the citizens first, and the welfare of the citizens. That is their job. Now if you think about a teacher or a brahmana, like it's not by birth, I'm just saying teacher. Swadharma of a teacher is to give knowledge and uh, prepare the citizens for the future, and the citizens also give them knowledge. That is the specific duty from a social order point of view. A teacher can also be a father or a mother. Now within the family order, he or she will have duties, right, which is to raise the family, give them an environment which helps them a healthy growth, both materially and spiritually, so that they don't take another birth, or they keep evolving. Their soul can get an opportunity to evolve higher. Now, so that is the swadharma, and we can discuss that again more detail later on also. Now when one is liberated, okay, liberated means somebody who has achieved, let's say, I don't want to say, like, yeah, I mean, it's like kind of spiritual emancipation, or something, like, again, let's say Ramakrishna Paramans, I'm just using his example. So one is liberated, then his duty is actually, spiritual. It becomes spiritual actually. All his duties are spiritual, and it is not at the material bodily concept. So when Ramakrishna Paramans is eating food, I'm just giving that example, he does not incur sin anymore. Or if he basically chastise somebody, he does not incur, sin. So because once somebody reaches that level, then the the bodily conception of life, or the concept, or uh, the laws which actually bound the bodily conception actually does not exist anymore. Now swadharma, and that is again, a lot of detailed discussion can be done on that. I'm just introducing you to that concept. So on the bodily level, swadharma is called varnashram dharma. That is what I think we should remember, and that is the, stepping stone for all of us for spiritual understanding and spiritual growth. Because specific duties actually, also are given, or are taken as per the modes of the nature of the body obtained. Now this is very very important and very difficult actually, in order to accept that which mode our body is. Primary mode, basically there are three modes, right? Like guna mode means guna. So sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna, and all of us actually are combination of all these three. And there's a lot of discussion about guna in the later chapters. But according to the guna, right, one actually accepts the specific duties, right, and which is where kshatriya, brahmana, etc. actually come about. So that is the swadharma part. Now in a battlefield, uh, I mean, the role of kshatriya is actually to fight, and by killing, or by protecting the citizens, and the killing involved in that, that is how, that is basically how they will achieve heavenly planets in the for a kshatriya. Now if you think about, kshatriya duty is to fight. So duty is fight, okay. Whether win, he continues to enjoy the kingdom in earth. If he loses and he dies, he enjoys, in heaven. If he does not fight, then he is actually incurring sin and will be subject to infamy and criticism, which is what we'll see in the coming verses. So verse 32, now Krishna says, O Parth, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of heavenly planets. So this is where now Krishna is explaining that you should be very happy that uh, this uh, this fight is actually available to you, because this will give you a chance to go to heavens. Now in Parashar Smriti, the which is basically the religious codes made by Rishi Parashar, and Rishi Parashar is father of Vyasadeva. So he says Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldier of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. So, that is the role or duty of a Kshatriya. Now, Krishna will talk about what is actually Pap for Arjuna. So, now 33, Krishna says, if however you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. So the first takeaway from this is, if you do not fight, you will incur sin for neglecting your duty. And Arjun was actually famous fighter. Like he attained fame by fighting many great demigods like Lord Shiva. He fought in the form of hunter, and like after being pleased from Arjuna, Shiva gave him Pashupatastra. He also helped Indra by killing demons, and even Dronacharya gave him a lot of benediction and gave him special weapons. So if he were to abandon the battle, or he were to abandon his duty, especially Kshatriya, then I think that is the problem, or that is the path to hell actually for him. Now in this verses, if you see, like verse 34, Krishna says people will always speak of infamy, right? Akirti. And for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. So that's another point Krishna is making. Now verse 35 is saying the great generals who have highly esteem of your name and fame will think that you left the battlefield out of fear, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words, they criticize, right, and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain heavenly kingdom planets, or will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. So now Krishna is giving, again as I told you, these are material examples. He is telling you infamy, akirti, ninda, all this will be unbearable for you because you are, you are a fear, because people think you actually ran away out of fear. And then he also explains that even if you are killed, you are actually going to heaven. And that is this, so now this is basically the Sakaam Karma part, that by doing your duty you go to heaven, by not doing or avoiding your duty you go to hell. Now Krishna will explain working in knowledge without attachment to results, which is also called Niskama Karma Yoga. I think we will do the whole thing maybe next time, but we have 5 minutes, 7 minutes. So let me just do an introduction to the topic and then we'll do more details next time. So this is like verse 38 to verse 53. Krishna talks about Nishkama Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or even a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga is also there in this. So if you think about this, Arjun wanted to avoid war due to fear of sinful reactions also, right? So that was given in verse 36 to 38. So before that he was fearing no enjoyment, even if he wins. Right? Now, so Krishna already spoke about that in I think verse 33, that by not fighting he will incur sin, or by avoiding his duty he will be incurring sin. Now in this section Krishna actually explains how can one avoid all reactions by performing one's duty with detachment from the results, and which is where the whole karma yoga and lot of Gita sar is given, right? When we think about, like when you hear or read all those Gita sar, karma karo phal ki ichha mat karo, all that is actually from this section. And to motivate Arjun, I think Krishna also speaks about gyan, explains Jnana Yoga in the first part of this, in this chapter, right, where he gave all the Sankhya and the knowledge. And then, so basically gradually Krishna took, like first he gave Gyan or Sankhya about the body and the soul, which was good reason for him to not fight. Then he gave him Sakaam Karma, right, with fruitive results. And now I think he'll talk about Nishkama Karma Yoga, to work with knowledge and detachment as an offering to the Lord. This is the Karma Yoga, actual Karma Yoga, which we can actually take maybe one word, so we can take questions also.